Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Grow to Be Free podcast. I'm so excited today to have Radhika Vekaria here. And she is a conscious creative that has helped awaken the truth that lies within through her clients, through music, yoga, and all sorts of other modalities. And so I'm going to hand it to her to talk a little bit more about her credentials. But I am so excited because she is an amazing person with an incredible soul that just pours out incredible nuggets. So you're in for a treat.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Kiani. Yes, as you said, I mean, I think you covered it all, generally in all of the work that I do or all of the creative projects that I've ever made. The intentional, just the natural intentional, natural expression that comes out seems to kind of switch something in the people that receive it. So I guess that's what I'm here to do. So whether it's in yoga, music, as you said, or even with deep client work, that's really my intention, is to excavate to a level that people don't even realize is there, because we're so unconscious of so much that's happening to us and within us, that sometimes you just someone can come along and just kind of help you a little bit realize what's laying so beautifully underneath. So yeah, I love to do that. Makes my heart sing.
That's beautiful. I love that too. And I feel like we all have those moments where something comes to the surface. We're like, whoa, what was that? And we need a guide or somebody or a good friend or a coach to kind of help us process those feelings or emotions to get through it in a constructive manner. And so tell us about your story. You have a really interesting one. You're now in music, but you've dealt with a stammer, which is a new concept for me. So go ahead and intro like what that is and tell us about how you overcame that.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you kind of focusing in on that, because I think it's something that people don't speak about a lot. And most recently, you guys got a president who has a stutter, and I think a lot of people were very surprised to learn that. We just don't think about it. We think it's just, fear or nervousness, but some people actually have a kind of neurological condition or a deep-seated subconscious belief that causes this in them. And for me, when I was a child, I had an incredibly bad stammer. I mean, me and my brother, so between me and him, we were just a right pair that couldn't say anything. It was quite hilarious. I mean, now I
Aw.
can laugh at it, but I mean, you come through stuff and you find the humor in things, which is a very British thing to do. But I had, yeah, me and my brother. Oh, it's quite a time. But basically, it can be very, very difficult, and especially in your childhood, when kids don't know what is how cruel they can be. So if you are bullied at that age because of expressing your voice, which is the way that the primary way you connect with the world, that can have a very, very long lasting effect on your psychology and confidence. And it's funny because I was quite fortunate. I always had music and singing, because my father was a singer. So we used to have music parties in the house, and I used to sing and play music and piano and all this kind of stuff. So I had that outlet. And actually, it's very common, if you didn't know this already, if you've seen the movie The King's Speech, melody and singing helps people with a speech impediment a lot. It's actually one of the things that's being used now to help people be able to kind of have the cadence when they speak, get the words out, because music and melody softens them, basically in a very simple way to say, it relaxes you and it softens you. So it takes the kind of fear, anxiety out of expression. But so anyway, I had a speech impediment as a kid, but I always had music. So I could express myself in music, but I always used to hide in terms of speaking, and it's only in recent years that I've actually begun to speak, which is not anything that I thought I would be doing. Like, even this, if you'd
Yeah.
have told me a few years ago, I still actually have it now. Some days it's actually really bad. Some days I find it really hard to get my words out. But the biggest difference in being able to articulate myself is actually who I'm with, and if I trust who I'm with. So it's a testament to you, because I seem to be getting the words out. So
Oh, that's awesome. well, congratulations. Yeah.
Mm.
When you've been able to overcome something, especially that's been deep rooted in your childhood, that's a huge accomplishment. Like, I would not have even guessed that you would have had any sort of speech impediment, especially the first time that I heard you speak. So it's pretty incredible. And I kind of want to dive deep into, when you first realized that your voice was a little bit different from other people. Was there a certain moment that you remember? And how did that make you feel at that time?
Do you mean in terms of my voice was different because I had a speech impediment?
Mhm, mhm.
Well, it was very obvious because at the beginning of every school year, I don't know if you do this in America, but in England, you go into a new, I guess you call it homeroom or home kind
Uh-huh.
of class or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get put with a group of people that you meet with every morning, and this is what's going to happen for the day. And every beginning of the year, they would say, everybody stand up and introduce yourself.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I would break out into a sweat, and I'd just be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I mean, stark, like the memory is just burned into my brain of standing up and not being able to say my own name. R, it starts with an R, and I couldn't say my name. And you break out into a sweat. You literally like almost just like, just dripping through your clothes, and you run out of the room, and then you get bullied for it. And it's yeah, so that becomes very, very much a part of your early childhood memory. So I hope that answers your question. I was
Yeah.
very young. I was probably about 6 or 7 when
Mhm,
that happened. Yeah, 6 or
mhm.
7.
Yeah. And then when did you start music?
Oh, the day I was born. I mean, I basically so my parents would have music parties in the home. So while I was in my mother's womb, I would hear all this music.
Uh-huh.
And when I came out into the world, my mom and dad have like tapes of me singing perfect melodies when I was like 2. I would sing melodies of perfect pitch, but there would be no words in it. So I would sing and sing and sing and sing, but I couldn't formulate words. And so I've always sung. I came out the womb singing.
Wow.
So I guess it was just always there for me. So I didn't really feel not being able to speak for me might not have been as big a problem for people who maybe didn't have that artistic outlet. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
I could use my voice in a different way. It was definitely challenging, but at least I had some outlet for my voice. But there are so many people who don't have that, you know? And it's like being in a prison that no one sees. Because I'm going to get emotional talking about this, but it's a very strange thing, Kiani. It's a very, very odd thing because when somebody has a challenge or like a disability or something, you can see it normally. It's obvious. So the person meeting you, is kind of prepared, and they kind of expect a certain type of movement or something, right? But when you meet somebody with a speech impediment, you have no idea. So it's almost like half of you is trying to make sure no one notices, right? So you've got that fear of someone finding out. And then half of you is just embarrassed or scared because of what reaction is someone going to give me when they do hear me. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
the battle of those two, and nobody has any idea when you meet them this is going to happen. So it's like you become exposed the moment you speak, and it's spontaneous, and you don't know what reaction you're going to get.
Right. Yeah. So do you feel like that caused you to be more introverted, or did you kind of keep to yourself as a kid to avoid those interactions?
I actually was very active as a kid. I had sports, music, art, my education. I was so busy as a kid. I probably needed a manager when I was a child because I had so much stuff going on. Um, so I didn't in I think people would think I'm an extrovert because I perform, and when I'm with people, I give 100%. Like when I'm with you right now, nothing else matters in the world. Like, I have my phone off. I don't like touch. Oh, let me make sure I have my phone off. No, it's in like I have my. I'm about to say that, and then I'm like, oh, it goes off. So but I'm present with people and I give every part of myself. And that's something actually I learned from my father. Um, he gave all of himself to everyone. So people will probably think that I'm an extrovert. And when I'm with people, I'm bubbly, I want to include them. But there are times where I just want to be by myself. And it's not because I'm sad. I think it's because one of the gifts that having a speech impediment does give you, which is something I only just recently realized, I have had, decades of my life, years of my life to incubate, to actually think about, okay, when I do come out and speak, and if I do have a platform, what is it that I want to say?
Mm.
Because I know how hard it is to get the words out. So when I have the opportunity to speak, am I going to offer value? And there's so much noise out there, but is it relevant? And my brother has this great saying, don't mistake noise for relevance, and so I've had a lot of time to marinate and think about when I do start speaking, what is it that I really want to say? Is what I'm going to say going to be of value to the world, of service to people? Otherwise, I may as well just keep quiet,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
meditate. I may as well just do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I relate to that a lot. I feel like maybe I wasn't as conscious of it as you were, but I am definitely that same type of personality where I give my full attention to the people that I'm with. But there are other times where I really just want to be alone. Like at
Mm-hmm.
least 50% of the day, I prefer to be on my own and just like keep to myself. And um I agree with you that when you don't quite have, for lack of a better word, a voice to speak, when you feel like you don't have a voice to speak, I should say, you really do have to be conscious of what it is that you do speak into the world. And I can tell that you have so much value to give. Everything that you've shared so far just has so much value. And so when you're thinking of your music, how do you channel that idea into your music?
So that's such a great question. I've actually never had that question before. You're good. You're really good. Um,
Oh,
she's going for the jugular, you guys. She's like going straight in there. Um, you know, it took me a long time to land with what I wanted to say, even through music, right? For a long time, I thought, oh, let me just sing. I'm just going to sing. And everything I created, was singer-songwriter stuff. I've sung through, I've done open mic nights, I've done world stages, like sung with like Enrique Iglesias and Prince on
oh
stage in London
wow.
and all this stuff. And, wanted to release music, but I never, it's funny, I never released music until this Sanskrit album last year,
Oh,
even though I've been doing music for so long.
okay.
And I realized that the reason why I didn't release it is because it wasn't fully congruent with who I am and my message. Um, I think that there's kind of a bit of an epidemic in the world of, well, because I can, I should, right? Because I can put something out, I'll just put something out. But the problem is then we saturate the world with so much noise, and then we don't feel necessarily good and truthful or in alignment with what we're actually putting out or sharing. And I took a really long time. And I don't know if I was conscious of it or aware of it, but just by everything happens the way it's meant to, right? And I think for me, and the kind of person I am, and now what I have really stepped into standing for, is truth. If it's not 100% truthful, if you're not anchored in your truth, it means you're not tethered to anything. And if you're not tethered to anything, then outside criticism can shake you in a moment. If you're not established in what you feel to be true and is what is really, I'm going to use this word, authentic, right? Because that's the other buzzword of the year. But if it's not deeply authentic, then what will happen is You're exposing yourself to the world. And then the moment someone criticizes it, you'll be shaken. And you don't want that, right?
Mhm.
So, and there's so many people suffering at the moment from anxiety and depression and all of these things. And I genuinely feel that one of the reasons why is we're so exposed to the world and we're not anchored enough. We're not supported enough before doing that. And so again, I just kind of encourage people and say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean just because you can doesn't mean you should never. It just means that not everything has to be done like this.
Mhm.
Let's not be so hasty. Let's be safe. Let's take care of ourselves and nourish ourselves, get our roots established enough so that when we come through the soil and everything sways about in the wind, your roots are strong.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah. Did
how
I
I
answer your question? Sorry, I kind of go off on random
yeah, I think
tangents, but
so.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But anyways, it's a good tangent if it was a tangent. But yeah, my like when you were talking, it sounded like you were talking about your roots being, you know, recognizing who you are as a person and recognizing who is your authentic self. And that's something I've been going through over the last couple months or so, is really truly realizing like, who is Kiani? Who is this authentic person? And you know, what are those roots? And so, and I think you're completely right. Like if you don't have those roots, you're gonna just blow with the wind, which I've done for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how did you learn to find that for yourself?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm not going to be one of those people who, claims that a spiritual path is all rainbows and fairies and everything's fine and everything's just running in the field and winds are blowing through your hair. I think we get, we're human, and everything that happens to us is to nudge us to self-realization. And the thing is that we have two choices, right? Either we get pushed by the whims of life, forcing us to wake up. And then there's at some point where the lessons keep coming, and you're like, okay, I have to, I have to start getting honest. And I have to look at what this lesson is. What is it trying to teach me? Because you're here to, we're all here to grow and realize something. And so I think for me, I moved to LA about 8 years ago, and I never imagined that LA, Los Angeles, would be a place that would be so important for my growth and my spiritual evolution. Let's just say, like, every single person is on a spiritual path. I believe. I don't believe in saying I'm a spiritual person, because every single being is spiritual. um, and none of us is more evolved or less evolved. We're just in different parts of our own individual journey. There's no comparison there. But being here and being away from family, actually, I had to be away from all of my family. Something called me here. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was music. And actually, I've gotten more in touch with what's important to me. I'm more brave about listening to that voice inside. I spend my time meditating, um, and I do what nourishes me. Like, I've lost people in my life, and the lesson that everybody tells you is life is short, and experience joy and laugh. And when you do that, you actually expand. It's an expansive way of living. And then what happens is, when you're around people in situations that make you feel like you're contracting, you're aware of it, and you feel it feels that way. And and again, it's not that they're bad people. And I don't believe in saying like somebody's negative energy and da da. We're just not meant to kind of serve each other right now. right?
Mhm.
Or that person is serving me by telling me, actually, I need to be a little more mindful, right? We could look at it that way.
Hmm.
So everything's just waking us up. But anyway, in the long, taking a long answer and making it shorter, is that I missed my family so much. And I came so far away from England and Kenya and Uganda, where my parents are from, and the north of India, where my grandparents are from. It's almost like I've migrated west. I've gone so far away from India that it's almost like I came back to the spirituality of India. It's like almost going so far away to come back home. Um, because when you long for something is when you begin to seek it. And then I'm very, I earnestly sought that. So I've had um, teachers and kind of masters of these practices um, be able to. God, I'm umming a lot because I'm really thinking about this answer. I have to notice that. But I've been fortunate enough to meet people who've been able to guide me on my path back to myself and help me feel courageous in just being in my own truth, you know?
Yeah.
And silence is gold. And
Yeah. That's so beautiful. So, did you feel like you ever had to incorporate recovery from your childhood into this discovering of self? Did you have to address the imperfection, quote unquote, of what you went through in your childhood in order to get to this place?
yes. And, there was a moment that happened about 4 years ago in Encinitas, Southern California, for those that might not know that place. It's a very, very powerful place, very beautiful. And I was actually at a talk, and I can't remember what the profession of the guy was, but it was a guy called Dr. John, and I got randomly taken to this talk. And it was actually really spooky because my best friend was with me at the time, and she turned to me before the talk and said, I think this talk is going to be really powerful for you. And I'm like, and she's very intuitive and, that kind of stuff. It's kind of spooky. Anyway, we went in this talk, and it was a very intimate audience. And this guy did this thing about energy and structure. He did this conversation about energy and structure, and he worked with some people on the table, like laid them down and did some stuff. And um, how structure is kind of what's required for energy to flow. So he was talking about how some of us are more structured, some of us have more energy, and it's about finding that balance. Anyway, it was a fantastic talk. I just feel so bad I forgot the guy's name. But afterwards, there was a Q&A session, and there was a guy in the audience who put his hand up to show appreciation and actually said that he'd worked with the guy on stage. And this guy in the audience had an incredibly bad stammer. Really bad, like really, really bad, could barely get the words out. And in part of what he said, because when I work with my clients and help them, and my jaw dropped to think this guy who has this incredibly challenging stammer says that he works with clients one on one. And I had this moment, I just burst out crying. It was like I was in one of those talk shows in the audience, and I was like, "Oh my god, this feels," and I just had this like release moment, this release moment, and I just was so grateful for his bravery. And I thought, what's stopping me?
Wow.
He's so brave, and my friend told me it would be powerful. It's amazing. And from that point on, I'd been feeling a bubbling up to share more than music, but it was that. It was that. It was that moment. And it was after that I said, okay, I'm going to start doing public speaking, and I'm going to just share and not need a soundtrack behind me or a beat or music. And I'm just going to be bare and not worry about what happens. But there was one thing that the doctor on stage said to the guy that stuck with me. And he said to him, he goes, I thank you for talking. And he goes, you know what? You're really powerful when you speak, because when you speak, people listen. And it was so powerful. And I even, it was such an emotional moment. And so the imperfection, what I realized is that an imperfection is not something to fix. It's not bad. It's actually a gift. It's a gift. There's a reason we have it, you know? And it was just such a big moment. So I embraced the imperfection. And it's a perfect imperfection for me.
Wow.
Mm.
That was amazing. I was getting a little bit teary-eyed when you.
Yeah.
Wow, because it's true when you see somebody else who's going through something either just as tough or more tough than what you've gone through or what you've been through, it really makes you put yourself into perspective and put your situation into perspective. And it's incredible that you let that resonate with you right in that moment and you just made a decision to change.
Yeah, it was instantaneous. And I think it wasn't the fact that he had a stammer, it was the fact that he was so fearless,
Mm.
right? Because a lot of people, which I actually am kind of vehemently against this, is when people go, oh, well, look at their situation, it's worse than mine, so what should I be worried about? Because our gratitude should not be pegged on somebody else's suffering. I don't
Yeah.
believe that, right?
Yeah.
So I personally feel it's not compassionate to that person to say, oh, well, I should be fine because they're suffering more. It was more that he was so fearless. He just went for it. And in whatever form that came in, that's what I would have resonated with, is that bravery. It just happened to be that it was a speech impediment that I could kind of recognize it a little more easily. But I've met a lot of people who are just so brave, you know. Bravery resonates with all of us because we're all, I mean, think of everything it took to make you. Think of every single circumstance it took for you to be born, right? That's why not be brave? Why not?
So good.
You
Yeah.
owe it. You owe it to, every decision your parents made, whether you get on with them or not, or your grandparents or whatever. You owe it to life. To I kind of say, like, was it life doesn't owe you anything, you owe everything to life.
Ooh, amen to that. That's something that I've been living by recently, where it's like, I don't know why I have this. I think about death a lot. I admittedly do. And it I don't like that at all. But what it creates is an urgency deep inside where I realize, like, today could be the last day. What am I going to do with this time? It really helps me maximize my time. And lately I've been feeling very tired and just a little bit drained because I need my sleep and I don't always get it. And
I love my bed. Oh my God, I
I
love my
love
bed. Every time I go in my room and I look at my bed, I'm like, oh God.
like my love.
It's the best relationship I've ever had with my bed.
We meet again. I'm like, I miss you back there.
I miss you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. So I love my bed, I love my sleep. But I also realize that, life is short and I feel like life is only worth it if you just really maximize it. If you really can look back at your week or look back at your year or look back at just, if your whole life flashed before your eyes and you looked back, would you say I gave it my all? Like I gave it like the biggest fight that I could. I don't know why, but I'm a very much like a hero's journey type of person where I love those classic movies where there's that hero or heroine who just goes through it. And I think we all love those stories where they just go for it and you're like, why are you still fighting? Like, just stop, like, just give up. You can go home.
It's very entertaining, isn't it? It's very entertaining.
It is, yeah. And I love that. I love that feeling of like, okay, I gave it my all and like that was exciting. I think for me it's the excitement of things.
Well,
And
that's actually what your spirit is calling for. So if you don't mind, I'm going to make an observation here.
go for it. Yeah.
So some of us have a spirit or a soul that comes into this alive in order to do that, right? Not all of us have that, and it's not good or bad. There are some people who get immense joy by just having a routine day, having a simple life, because that's what satisfies their soul. That's what the intent of their soul coming into this life is, right? But some of us have this like, man, if I don't walk through the fire, I don't feel alive, right? I just want to transform and I want to grow and I want to this. I had somebody say to me a couple of years ago, I feel like you know, go through stuff or have experiences that you just want to grow, like you have these things. I'm like, yeah, because if I'm not growing, I don't feel like I'm living. Like it doesn't, I don't want to stay the same, right? And it's no judgment on people that do. It's just that you have a fighting spirit. You have this kind of, even in speaking with you now, there's this kind of, there's this spark and this curiosity that it's like, I just want to like, oh, I just want to like, eat every last bit. I don't eat ribs, right? But it's like if you're eating ribs and you want to get every single last little bit off the bone and then crack the bone and suck. My grandfather used to like crack the bone and suck the bone of drumsticks.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm just, yeah, he used to eat the marrow. But the point is, I'm sharing a lot of information, but the point is that some of, well, the chicken analogy is good. I'm sorry, are you vegetarian?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. Okay, right. So chicken, people eat chicken in different ways, right?
Yes.
Some people leave a lot of flesh on the bone. Some people eat it down to the bone.
Yeah.
Some people suck the bone, and some people literally snap it in half and take the marrow. They leave nothing on, no chicken left practically, right? That's the
Mhm.
first time I'm thinking about it. I think it's really good. So we're all different.
Yeah.
We're all different, and no one way is better. We're all just different. We're here to experience life in a different way.
That's so true. Yeah, it's
Mm.
definitely so true. Man, I almost forgot where we were with that. But
Well, you were saying how like you are, you love that hero story. You love like, that kind of, it's very, very exciting for you. But not everybody has to have that, you know?
yeah, it's very true.
Not everyone has to have that. There's a lot of storytelling going on right now. There's a lot of people like regurgitating their pain in order to satisfy this hunger. And I'm going to be very, very straight right now. People love to be entertained. And I was saying this on a talk the other day about telling your story. And I kind of thought about it and I said, are you telling your story because you want to entertain people? Are you telling it because you want to inspire people? Or are you telling it because you want to heal?
Hmm.
They're three very different places that you can tell a story. But for me, I think it's really important to integrate the past before you regurgitate it and share it. It's really, really important because that way you protect yourself and that way you're speaking from a place of um, completion before you come out into the world. And then you can give without dumping.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You can give without being heavy and you can give without taking. And you can give without being taken from,
Right.
right? And depleted as you share. So I'm here to, I kind of like to kind of remind people just be very, be responsible, I would say. A bit of
Yeah.
responsibility is required, but you
Absolutely.
know, yeah. And if you have something powerful that's happened in your life, that will be even more powerful when you do finally come out and share it, you know?
Yes, it is so true.
Mm-hmm.
So I remembered my follow-up question.
Oh, sorry, I take people off on a
It's
random.
all good. No, that was very important to share, and I agree because you were talking about how you really need to heal yourself and we're not talking about trauma, but you know, those moments in the past where you have needed to heal from, those need to be healed before you can properly share it to the world constructively, that can deliver value. So I totally agree. But my follow-up question was, you know, when you were listening to that guy with the stammer speak, and that completely did a 180 for you, like almost instantaneously, where you made a decision, I'm going to start doing public speaking, which is a huge step from where you were, like, you know, in that moment 10 seconds ago. So explain to people who might be a little bit slower to act on something, like say if they have, maybe they have a dream of public speaking, they're like, I, in their head they're like, I can't ever do it, but their heart is calling them to it. You know, what would you say to that person to actually get them off their butt per se and start moving towards it?
Well, I think first, ask yourself why you want to do it, right? Why do we want to publicly speak? Okay, so the reason why I decided is because when I have private conversations with people, I would be told, you should publicly speak. What you say has some value, or you're a powerful speaker. And I was just like, oh, but I can't do it in a room full of people, or, you know, but I'd been asked by people. And I kind of asked myself, okay, well, people have said it to me, but what is it that I want to do? And I started thinking, well, in what arenas or what kind of situations or what kind of talks, what kind of events do I want to speak in? So what happened was I started to ask myself that question, and literally within 3 months, I got asked to moderate an event at Paramount Pictures in Hollywood. And it was an event called From India with Love. And it was about how previous convicts and police went together on a trip to India to learn meditation together. So that was just completely in my wheelhouse because I love meditation. My heritage is from India. And that came in. I didn't have to even seek it out because I just asked from my heart. And I actually said, if I publicly speak, it has to be of value and of service. And when you put yourself in a position and a kind of state of being of service to others, you almost don't even have to think about it. The opportunity will come, and it's just a matter of answering honestly in that moment, do I want to do it or not? And that's it. It's just when you come from a space of service, you actually remove yourself, and your worries actually go out the window because it's not about you, it's about the other. And that's when my fears broke away. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, and I didn't expect you to say that, but it really is so true. Like I I definitely have had those moments where I didn't want to do something. Or, well, maybe I did, but it was a little bit too hard for me to actually want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And what really got me to start moving forward was thinking of like, okay, how many people can this impact? How many, like, for example, social media. I'm not naturally a person who likes to post on social media, but you know, if you have a podcast, you probably should. That's when I started sharing some things that are a little bit personal. I'm not used to like posting videos and selfies of myself like on social media, but I realized like, okay, you know, like how can that help another person? You know, somebody was scrolling and said like, wow, this really helped me today, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that makes it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so true, you kind of have to take your eyes off of yourself in order to start doing stuff that actually impacts the world.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. And you've had that experience yourself, right? And I mean, the greatest gurus say that if you help one person in your life, your job is done. The karma of your soul is done. It's all you have to do. And in this day and age, we have an opportunity to help people on the other side of the planet. I mean, how incredible is this time that we live in?
It's
That
incredible. Yeah.
you can have an impact on someone's life. They can have an impact on you. It's not just about us, right? We're kind of talking in, well, how can I be of service? But look at what we're receiving from the
Yeah.
world. How much love. and support. We literally have the whole world supporting us if we ask for it.
Right.
Like, it's there. And I think it's just a little side note. I think it's really interesting on apps like Clubhouse, for instance, where people are now saying, oh my God, it's so amazing that people are caring now. And I go, people were caring all along. People were caring all along. They just didn't, they were just kind of too worried about, we were kind of on these apps about the way that we look. I love how we're doing this while we're fiddling with our hair. It's great, how we look. But, everyone's, we want to make sure we look decent. But I'm saying that, it's when you take how you look out of the equation, it's your heart. We think about it, right? Our voice comes out because we take breath, right? We take breath. And if we don't have a strong breath, we don't have a strong voice.
Mm.
And I see the lungs are like the wings of the heart. So the bigger and more sweeter the breath you take, the higher your heart can sing,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to take pause, for us to breathe, right? And strengthen ourselves and then be able to share. And I mean, I just think it's so incredible. I mean, it's the way that people have loved through technology has blown my mind. And I'm very much like you. It's taken me a very, very long time to feel comfortable with social media to a certain degree. I don't post that much, but to use technology, I mean, now it's just what an incredible tool.
Yeah.
What an incredible thing to be able to help us facilitate that connection and that love. It's so beautiful. So yeah, I mean, last year, you would have no idea. Last year was personally one of the hardest years I've ever had in my life. You know, many people had it hard, but I had something happen at the beginning of the year that if most people knew about it, they would be absolutely shocked that 2 weeks later, I ended up on ABC News in front of the LAPD talking at the March for George Floyd at Los Angeles downtown, talking to people across the nation and like community leaders about compassion and togetherness and remembering our humanity. And if people had known what happened 2 weeks before, they would be absolutely shocked. And the reason why I was able to do that is because in that moment, it wasn't about me anymore.
Mm.
It's not about me,
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with the music as well. Like, I finally released music and I'm finally sharing music because I've gotten to a place of spiritual integrity, I would say. I like the word integrity. My father taught me that word. It takes a long time to get there. And now I feel that this is me. This is what I have to share. And every single thing I do is of service. So I just step out the way, you know? And that's when, I was about to swear, that's when it gets really powerful. That's when it becomes really powerful, like what you're doing and inviting people on a podcast and sharing voices. And it's powerful, super powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I appreciate you recognizing me in that. And it is so true that when you step outside of yourself or step out of your way, and I feel like it kind of embodies the essence of this podcast. I just want people to step out of their own way and step into who they really are. There's so much potential out there. Every single person has potential that I think they might not even ever live to see. But in order to even get close to that potential, you have to step outside of yourself. You have to step out of your own way and start, like you said, channeling that very powerful energy, that powerful authentic self being, whatever it is you want to call
Mm-hmm.
it, to actually start walking in that purpose, and walking in that purpose allows you to impact the world and impact people around you in ways that you will be remembered. And
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you don't even know who you're impacting.
exactly.
You have no idea. You know, it's not about, you know, there's in the great like spiritual texts and stuff, they say there's actually no difference between you impacting one person or a million people.
Wow.
There's no difference. Actually, your karma can be that impacting one person can be more powerful than millions of people. Because if you're impacting millions of people with any lacing of ego, it's actually worse than impacting one person on the street that you saw was hungry and you just went and bought them something and gave them food from your heart. It's more powerful because the place that you give it from is devotion, it's love, and without any expectation of what's coming back.
Wow.
It's far more powerful for you, far more powerful. So it isn't even about going out and living a life of purpose that everyone sees. It's more about, are you in that state of love? Are you operating from here or are you operating from here? You know, you can have you and your partner, or you can live a life just very simply. And I keep talking about this for a reason. I hope it's okay. Is because there are a lot of people out there wanting to go out and do something great because they feel inadequate, that they just are not, say, having a podcast or, you know, going out and speaking and all this kind of stuff because they're feeling like, oh, I should be doing it too. If you're doing it from a place that everyone else is doing it, so I should do it, that's going to be a waste of your energy because it's not going to be sustainable, because it's not coming from the truth of who you are. It is perfectly fine and admirable to live your life, be a good human being, be kind, and just live your life. It's perfectly fine, glorious, in fact, to do that, right? Um, so yeah, it's purpose can be found in the smallest act, you know. It's everywhere. It's everywhere and available to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I really understand what you're talking about, where it really comes from the place that your intention is coming from. Because, like you said, if you can have an intention that might be slightly negative or slightly selfish, and that skews everything. So I'm glad that you brought that up because, well, I come from the Christian faith, and they actually don't talk about this a lot. But the church that I go to, they actually do talk about, as you're giving to the church or giving back to God, they don't want you to give from a place of guilt. They don't want you to give from a place of like, oh, well, I should do this, or like people are watching me. Like, no, that we would
No.
rather you not give at all, because that's not coming from the right place,
Mm-mm.
you know.
It's actually better. It's actually better not to give.
Yeah,
It's better just to live your life.
yeah. And that is actually such a hard lesson to learn, especially for me, because I just feel like such a giving person. Giving is one of my spiritual gifts, but it's not that high up there. It's something that I can definitely have limits with. So I have to be very conscious and self-aware of when I'm giving too much or something that's above my limitation. Something,
Right.
yeah. So it's a give and take, ironically enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think may I kind of extrapolate on that point?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So somebody asked me again on Clubhouse, because Clubhouse is our world right now. You know, there's nothing else. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you give if your cup is not full, right? Because there's a lot of talk about, you know, people saying, I give and I give and I give, and, you know, I just feel drained and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, and people say you should only give when your cup is full. But you look at all the stories of the great messengers, right? All the spiritual figures. What did they have to give materially? What did they have to give?
Hmm.
They didn't have lushes and riches and all this kind of stuff, did
Right,
they?
right,
They
right.
didn't go out and pay for 1 million people to eat. They didn't do that. But yet we remember them in time. We remember them even now. And we have people, living their lives according to these teachings. And these people didn't have a whole, oh, but it's only when my cup is full that I will give,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
I think there's different layers of giving too, right?
Yeah.
There's material, there's physical, there's spiritual, right? So of course, if you have a limited income, if you're only earning $50,000 a year, you can't give $20,000 away. Otherwise, you can't pay your rent, you can't eat, and that's just not sensible, right? So you do need to be proportioned and sensible because you need to be able to be safe, healthy, vital, and taken care of, right? Physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to when like that's materially, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
physically, right? Hugs are free. I love hugging. I've had to teach some of my friends here how to hug, and now they hug properly. It's really funny because I'm a hugger. I'll smush you.
Oh.
And so hugging, you can hug people. You can look at them in the eyes, right? Looking at people in the eyes is so important. It's
Yes.
so important to do. So simple, right? And that requires time, right? So one is like your money and material. The physical one, to actually be there for someone, requires time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is your spiritual energy. And actually, I've found that doesn't require a full cup. Actually, it's in the times when you feel the most empty. The most empty. Have you ever had these times? Tell me if you've ever had this. Have you ever had a time in your life where you've had a really crappy day? A really crappy day, you're just like feeling really low. And you go out, someone comes across your path, and you smile, or you have a conversation with someone, or someone calls you up and you're like, oh, I don't know if I have the time for this. And then you talk to them, and then they end the conversation by, I really needed this, thank you. Have you ever had that happen? I'm
Yeah.
sure you have.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you think that came from?
Wow, that's a great question. I have those thoughts that go into my brain when I'm like not feeling good. And when I make the decision to do it, I feel like it comes from a place of like, well, I'm still alive. Of course I could say hi to this person. Of course I can say something nice. It doesn't take a lot in my
Mm.
opinion. So I feel like that's
Mm.
where it comes from, where it's like it's not that much to give, but I'm gonna do
So,
my best.
so I'm going to go down a little bit deeper into that. In
Okay.
that moment that's happened, you're not going through that in your mind, right? Like now you're thinking about it, you can say that. But in the moment, what is it that you feel? Why is it you can be there for another person?
Mm.
Because you're coming from your heart,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Is that right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
natural. It's natural to be there for someone. And the thing is that sometimes when you are the most empty is where something else comes through you and you're just there. You're like available for somebody else. And you become completely available for somebody else because you feel like you have nothing. And you step out the way and you just love them. You're just there. So I actually think it's amazing sometimes to feel so empty because then you're like, damn, I got nothing left to give. So I'll just be here. And then it's just unbounded. It's unbounded. There's no limit to what you can give when you feel empty. In
Yeah.
terms of in terms of your spiritual presence, your that
Yeah.
spiritual energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
So true.
that's just kind of a little more of a pecking down into the idea of giving. I hope that was okay to kind of
Yeah.
just excavate into a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing about that spiritual cup filling, or when you're empty and you give what you have left, I almost always feel filled after that.
Mm-hmm.
which I think people don't realize. So if they're talking about spiritual cup filling, they should know that when you actually fill someone else's cup in the spiritual sense, your cup is also filled. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it's a good topic.
Yeah, and yeah, that exactly. That makes sense. It's funny. I had this thought yesterday. So I could just talk to you for hours. I had this thought yesterday. You know, we have a certain amount. We have a capacity as human beings, and we actually have spiritually so much that we can hold. And it's actually said with all of this talk of manifestation, it's really interesting. People talk about, oh, but I want to manifest this and I want to manifest that. Well, in kind of Vedic sciences and spirituality, we talk about be careful what you ask for. Because if you ask for something and it comes into your life, the only way it can come in is if you have to let something go.
Mm, yeah. Wow.
So something will be taken from you. You have to give up something in order to get something, right? You can't just keep taking from the universe. It doesn't work like that. Right? People are like, I want this and I want that. No, well, you have to give something, right? And in even in all those say Christian stories, right? It's like you give and then you receive. You give and then you receive. You don't receive and then give, right? You give and then you receive. Nowadays, some people have incredible amounts of wealth that they've been blessed with and worked very hard for, and now they're giving, which is amazing, amazing what people are doing. But for many of us, um, we need to make space in our little box, right? To be able to receive something. So when you give to another human being, you really do get filled. It's like it's very, very sweet.
Yeah.
And what it does, I think, when you give to another human being, the reason why we feel filled up is because when you engage with another human being, there is a bond created. There's a bond created, in that act. And that's connection. And
Yeah.
every single one of us is here to experience that. So
Yeah.
I think life is so sweet and it can be so simple, in the simple acts. Just, it can become sweet, doesn't have to be so complicated.
Absolutely. So good. Oh, well, I think that's a great place to stop or to end. Wow, this has been such an amazing conversation. Please tell us where we can find you. Where do you want to send people if they want to get in touch with you, or if
Oh,
they want to listen to your music? Where do you want to send people?
thank you, Kiani. So my Instagram is I am Radhika V. So IamRadhikaV. I'm sure you're gonna put some stuff in your
I will.
in your things and do magic. So you can get in touch with me on Instagram. There's a link tree in my Instagram bio, and you can find links to my music, my website, my teaching. I teach yoga. The mantra music I have is very, very healing. They are mantras and chants that are thousands of years old, and it's been incredible to hear how people have been so moved and they didn't even know what Sanskrit is, which is a really ancient language and healing in itself. So, yeah, you can get in touch with me. And if you want to direct message me on Instagram or message me through my website. And I may take some time coming back to you. But the reason why is because I don't want to give you a generic response. I want to be able to pay attention and be present when I write to you and give you what's required in the moment. So bear with me because I'm just getting used to all of that. So, yeah. And that's where you can find me. And on Clubhouse, you'll find me on Clubhouse.
Oh yeah, she is on Clubhouse. You will find
I
her.
actually do, I've been doing like 2 days before the new moon and full moon chanting sessions, and people have been really enjoying that. It's been really, really healing. So, yeah, I'm going to continue doing that, but hopefully get out and do some shows and more speaking. And yeah, just find me.
Yes.
Find me, yeah.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And lastly, I'm a person of faith, so I love to pray for my guests at the end, and I would love to pray for you if you would allow me.
Please, yes, I'd love that.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this day, Lord God. I thank you so much for bringing Radhika into my life. She's an incredible soul, and you've done an amazing job creating her and creating her story. Her story is just so moving and so touching, and the way that she is able to share and touch to the lives around her is moving. I am so inspired by her, and I thank you so much for giving her her voice, giving her the powerful voice that she has, even though it can be very soft and it can be very smooth. That I I pray that it penetrates the hearts and minds of all of the souls that listen to this episode, Lord God, and I pray that you will continue to do the work through her life that you've called her to do, and continue guiding her down the path that is really going to give her fulfillment, give fulfillment to the people around her. And I pray that you will bring to her a wealth of not just finances but relationships and fulfillment and just all around happiness and joy and laughter, Lord God. And I pray this in your precious name. Amen. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful for you.
I am for you too.